So the time has come to buy a new family car, and because you have a family, you might have a dog and you go on holiday to places like Cornwall and Wales and maybe down into France and stuff, and you need to put all the stuff in it that family life comes with. What you're thinking of is a medium-sized crossover slash SUV that seems to be the de facto choice of a family car these days. Well, you're in luck, because there's plenty of them to choose from, isn't there? You know, there's the Volkswagen Tiguan, there's the Ford Kuga, the Skoda Kodiaq that we tested the other week, the Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, the Kia Sorento. There's just loads of them, all vying for your hard-earned cash. But what about a KGM? Now, they hadn't exactly sprung to the front of your mind when you're thinking about a new family car, had they? But they're here to entice you with this, which is a large, robust, spacious and practical family SUV. Question is, who are they and is it worth it? Welcome to this week's new car review. Welcome to the new KGM Torres. As always, please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, before I get started on this week's new car review of the KGM Torres, I need to ask a little favour. Would you mind ever so much making sure you subscribe to the House of Cars channel, please? Once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button down below, because that's the way you get notified when the next video's uploaded and it's gone live. If you watch it and you enjoy it, which I really hope you do, then make sure you give it a wee thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars I'm reviewing on the channel, such as the KGM Torres, and of course on the channel as a whole. So what, KGM, what? Well, it's the artist formerly known as Ssangyong, really. KG Mobility are the company that swooped in and rescued Ssangyong when they found themselves in a wee bit of a sticky wicket when it came to their finances a couple of years ago. And they've relaunched the brand as, well, they were going to call it KG Mobility, but which is obviously the name of the company. But the problem is that sounds like somewhere you'd buy a bedpan from. So it's KGM, as it is. And oddly enough, you can still buy sort of like the models that were formerly known as Ssangyong, so the Tivoli, the Rexton, the Carando, the Musso. But the Torres is an all-new car. And also, not just is it here in petrol form, but you can also buy it as a fully electric car. Now, I've reviewed the electric version of the Torres, the EVX, over on my other channel, Auto EV. So by all means, if you're interested in the electric version of it, pop over there for a review of that. But it's this petrol one here that we're interested in when it comes to House of Cars. But as I said, is it any good? And is it worth considering when there's so much choice out there from, dare I suggest, more familiar brand names? But as usual, before we start the full road test, let's take a look at the main points about the KGM Torres. So as I say, the Torres is a large family SUV that competes in a market space occupied by such cars such as the Skoda Kodiaq, the Volkswagen Tiguan and the Honda CR-V. It's powered by a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol unit, although this car can also be had as the fully electric Torres EVX. Two trim levels are available from launch, initially in two-wheel drive at first, with an all-wheel drive option following later. And prices range from £35,000 to £40,000, depending on the model that you choose. So in terms of its price, it is right in the heartland of some very familiar and some very talented competition with, like I said, more familiar brand names. So what does the Torres have that could entice you away from them and look at this instead? Well, let's stick it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Well, the first thing that catches your eye is the way the car looks. In a good way. I think this is quite a handsome looking beast. I quite like this kind of chunky, it almost recalls old school off-roaders, I think, you know, and there's a lot of design elements from other manufacturers in here. Not blatantly copied, just little elements you're looking at it and go, oh, that reminds me of a insert name of 4x4 here. And the first one it reminds me of is a little bit Jeep-like. Do you not think? This kind of, you know, the Jeep 7-slot grille across the front. You know, that's just what that reminds me of. It's a very different looking car. When you buy it in electric form, the EVX, there's a real difference to the front end of the car. And both of them, I think, both the electric one and the combustion engine car look good. I really like the car, the way it looks. It's very distinctive, as I say, and it just reminds me of those old school 4x4s. I think I mentioned this in another video, maybe it was on Auto-EV. One of the things that we noticed, Charlie and I noticed, my colleague Charlie and I on Auto-EV when we were doing a review of the Goodwood Festival of Speed, whilst the European manufacturers tend to tone the kind of SUV-esque elements of their crossovers down, the Far Eastern manufacturers, you know, Hyundai, Kia, KGM, some of the Chinese brands, they're pumping them up. They're going, no, let's make it look like a proper big off-roader. And I quite like that. Why not? If that's the size of car it is, make it look like it should belong off-road. There is a 4x4 coming out, as I say. It's just two-wheel drive at the moment, but there will be a 4x4 later in the year. But that's for another discussion. Right, so elements of Jeep, as I say, across the front here. Different lights that you get on the petrol car rather than the light bar of the electric one. But again, there's a little bit of a Range Rover Evoque in there, maybe? Don't know. Looks nice. One thing it does seem to have changed from the electric one is the kind of overriders, bumpers that the electric car has have got elements of the Korean flag in it, which I like, but they're not here, or they certainly don't seem to be here, and I think that's a real shame, because it was something I thought played to the heritage of the car. Anyway, irrespective of that, I think it's a good looking car. You've also got your grille here, obviously for cooling, and a little bit down there. Torres emblazoned across, you know, and embossed into the front grille section there. These nice kind of small inset fog lights to the side. Toe and eye cover here, which is done in a nice metallic candy apple red, which I do like that. Again, they've made a feature of it, which is good. Obviously there's some parking sensors around the car as well. There's a reasonable amount of tech on it when it comes to the safety system, the advanced driver systems on it, but it's not overburdened with it, in fairness. But yeah, there's a chunkiness to the front of it. It looks like a car that, you know, sort of like 20, 30 years ago you'd put a bull bar on the front of, you know what I mean? But obviously you can't do that these days. Big slab of bonnet here, and then of course you get to these bits up here, which are, well, they're just plastic stuck on bits of the bonnet, but again it just makes it look a bit different. I mean, that's the type of thing, if you had a light bar across the roof, you know, you put a guide rope down to that to help secure it, but I wouldn't put anything onto there if I was you. But yeah, chunky, distinctive, sets its stall out, doesn't it? Now obviously we discussed trim levels when it comes to pricing, but basically there's two. There's the K30 and the K40. This is a K40, which is the range topper. The K30 gets 18-inch wheels, K40s get 20s. I think 18s are going to look really lost in those big arches. But again, like the front, isn't it? You know, that big plastic wheel arch extension there that you see on chunky big 4x4s, and then it runs down the bottom. Good ride height on the car, you know, in terms of ground clearance. You know, so if you're in, I don't know, car parks or going over sleeping policemen or things like that, there's a good amount of ground clearance on the car, even though it is just front wheel drive. You can see that shape of the wheel arch mirrored in the bodywork here in the front wing, so it does get mirrored there, and again the same at the back as well, you know, except this one extends the line right into these rear tail lights here. Big chunky door mirrors as well, like them, good visibility. What's odd, and I'll need to put some B-roll up to show you, is the gap between the back of the bonnet, between the trailing edge of the bonnet and the screen, this scuttle area here is huge. There's a big area for the wipers in there, but that's a big old space. That, yeah, you could keep goldfish in there. Look at this roofline, the way it goes up. There's almost a bit of Land Rover Discovery here, but rather than a step, it peaks and then goes back again with your integrated roof rails. They're standard, and then you get the silver area here just to break the bodywork up. This is a lovely shade of metallic navy blue called Dandy Blue, which I love that name. Looks nice on the car, looks quite classy in fairness. And obviously you get privacy glass at the back and over here, and then a big roof spoiler as you see there. But yeah, chunky and distinctive. I quite like it. You're not going to miss it in the car park, are you? It's a big old bus, and that's a good thing, because wait till you see the space that's on offer. Now when you get round the back, it's one of the more distinctive parts of the car, and again, I quite like it. It looks like the old school spare wheel carrier. You know, obviously it's not, there's no spare wheel in there, but I like the way they've made a bit of a feature of that, this offset kind of bulge, if you like. As I say, it's designed to mimic the old school spare wheel carriers you used to get in the off-roaders, you know, like Isuzu Troopers and Shoguns and things. High level brake light upset and that roof spoiler there, that's really neatly integrated in there, and obviously a little wiper there. Now because the handle's there, you naturally assume that the tailgate is going to open this way. It doesn't, it's a conventionally open tailgate, top hinged. So when I open it, It opens like that. So yeah, it's just a styling feature. It's just a styling feature they've done with that spare wheel carrier and the handle offset to the side. And obviously, as you can see, it's got a power tailgate as well. Offset number plate, which will obviously upset some people with their OCDs, but there you go. Reversing camera tucked up there. Your KGM badging there, and Torres emblazoned across there. These rear lights, they've got a little bit of the Korean flag. The corners of the flag, you know, the thick 3 lines that are in there, they're in there. But those rear lights remind me a little bit of the American Ford Explorer and a tiny little bit of Range Rover, last generation Range Rover. Again, just borrowing little elements without actually copying them. Down at the bottom, bit the same as the front, plastic, sort of like rear skid plate if you like, I suppose, you know, bumper area there, parking sensors inset into them there. So, what do we think? Well, as I say, I quite like the way it looks, I have to admit. I think it's quite chunky, it's quite distinctive, it's very different, it's unapologetic, it's saying, look, I am a big car, you know, why not? Why should I not look like one? But it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Is it yours? Let me know in the comment section down below. So, big car, big boot, yeah, absolutely. 703 litres, which is down on the electric one, believe it or not. And it's also down on the Skoda Kodiaq 5-seater car by well over 100 litres, believe it or not. But that's still big. It's bigger than things like the Ford Kuga and other cars in the class. And as you can see, 4 suitcases fit nice and easily, you know, with other bags down the side there. If you do fold the standard standard 60/40 rear seat down, that takes the total capacity up to 1,660 litres, I think it is. So good size. My only disappointment is this. For such a size of boot, it would be nice to have some tie down points, or for something to kind of lash, you know, like a load net on, because, you know, if you just go into Sainsbury's or, you know, Tesco's or whatever and putting a couple of bags in there, they're just going to roll about, because it's such a big space, you know, if you have the boot empty like that. So like maybe a luggage net, you know, to be integrated into it would have been a good thing. Or, you know, like Volvo do, have a boot floor that you can open up a little bit and jam things into the side of it. But there's none of that. So whilst it's got the space to be practical, it lacks some of the practicalities, if that makes sense. There's some deep wells down at the side, however. So if you were, I mean, there's my camera bag, my rucksack. That fits in there nicely, you know, so you could put them down there, I suppose. But yeah, I'm just a bit disappointed with that. The other good thing about it is, whilst obviously you do have to lift your cases up onto the height of an SUV, it is a a flat entry in, so the floor is the same height, you know, as the bumper level, which is good. There's a tiny little bit of underfloor storage, and I do mean tiny. That'll be just for things like, you know, spare bulb kit, you know, what else do you need? High-vis jackets, that type of thing. If you're touring in France or something, they'll go underneath the boot floor there, but there's no other kind of storage other than that. But as I say, 60/40 split rear seat, and you've got also the roller blind, which folds as well. It's got a reasonable height, because the back end is, you know, it's not too sloped like some cars have. Again, it's that chunky styling that affords it. It is quite a usable space. So, good amount of space, good size, good shape of boot, however lacking the little practicalities like the tie down load points that you would maybe come to expect for a car like this. However, back here there's very little to complain about, because it's huge. It's absolutely vast back here. There's plenty of space for a family of 5. You will get somebody sat here, the bench is big enough here. There's a bit of an intrusion from a centre transmission tunnel, but if it was a smaller child you were having there, they'd be able to put their feet on it and not really interrupt, you know, not bang their shins against this. So there is certainly bags of room back here. There's no 7-seat option in this car, which I know some cars in this class do have. The Kodiaq I reviewed the other week, the Tiguan Allspace had it, Hyundai Santa Fe, Kia Sorento. Those cars you can have obviously with 7 seats, but in fairness, KGM offer a 7-seater. Now, what one is it? Is it the Rexton or is it the Carand? One of the two. I think it's the Rexton. It gets 7 seats in it. But anyway, that's fine. But enough space for 5, a family of 5, which is more than you can expect. There's storage, there's mat pockets at the backs of the front seats. There is. an armrest that folds down, and you have 2 cup holders. There are door bins which are shaped for water bottles. They're not lined, but they feel sturdy enough, in fairness. And you get things such as, you know, the integrated little blinds in the backs of the doors here on this model as well, to keep the sun off your children and stuff like that. So yeah, so you know, in fairness, it's pretty big back here. I'm 5'8", that's my driving position, and I can lounge back here. There's bags of headroom. I could wear a very tall hat in this car as well. So even if you are tall, or you're sitting behind a taller driver, you're still going to have enough room, in fairness, aren't you? Isofix points on the 2 outer seats, as you'd expect. They're not covered by sort of little plastic covers, which are the easiest ones to get at, but they're not too bad. They're relatively exposed and easy to find. And obviously, if you've got one of those child seats, you know, that swivel round and have the floor stand as well, there is more than enough space, I would suggest, in here to get that turned round in there. So that's going to be more than adequate for you. Last but not least, there's 2 USB-C charging ports back there. So if you have got the kiddie winks back here and they've got their iPads or iPhones and need to charge them, there's charging ability down there. A couple of little storage bins in there that'll take a packet, pull them mints, and I'd say some cup holders for the water bottles. So in terms of space on offer in the back, it's a proper big family car, without doubt. Apologies if you're picking up the fan noise. It's a really hot day today, so I've got the fan on just to keep myself cool in here, because, well, I'd toast otherwise. Right, so the first thing that you might concern yourself with, depending obviously on your ages, you might think, oh, I bet the interior feels really cheap. Not really, in fairness. There's a lot to like about here, and there's a lot to recommend up here. First of all, whereas the outside is very kind of chunky and very, you know, so this over-styled in some respects, the interior has gone the other way. It's gone very minimal, and I quite like that. The twin screens that you have here, a 12.3-inch screen in front of the driver and a 12.3-inch infotainment screen, it reminds me very much of Hyundai and Kia, you know, the twin screens that they have. And I have a sneaking suspicion that they may borrow some of the things from those companies, but I'll maybe talk about that a bit later. Right, what have you got? So in front of the driver, you've got this screen here where you've got a speedometer on your right, a digital speedo here. I can't show it at the moment because I've got the door open, it's telling me that. But on the left, the digital rev counter does it in numbers. But instead of saying like 1,500 RPM, it's got 1.5 and then 2.5, you know, so it does it that. It's a bit weird. That takes a bit getting used to. You can change the display. If I do it, if it'll let me do this, if I do it in the right way, yeah, there we go. I press, so there, so you can have now the navigation up here. So speed over on the right, again the rev would be here, and you have navigation there. You can alter it to, you know, do various different things. So you can have it so now, so it's showing the media screen. There's a little bar runs along underneath these numbers, so it is a sort of proper rev counter. But yeah, so there's a bit of configuration available to you, and depending obviously on what information you want to see. I quite like it having the navigation in the front there and then your media over this side, because then you know you're not taking your eyes off the road really if you've got your navigation up. Right, quick word on navigation. If you plump for the K30 model, the lead-in car, I'm not going to call it basic because it is very well equipped as standard, but it doesn't have the integrated sat-nav. You do still get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, so you can use Waze, Google Maps, Apple Maps, things like that if you go for a K30. It's just that the K40 is the one that has the inbuilt navigation, which is by TomTom from memory. So it's quite a good system. So, you know, again, I tend to use Google Maps and Maps. I don't tend to use cars' inbuilt navigation anyway, so it's not a massive loss not having it. You move across to the infotainment screen, again 12.3 inch in size, and here's all your apps. Now they're not, it's okay, this screen to use, it's all right. You know, a couple of times you're finding you've got to press it, you know, just a couple of times, or if you don't hit it right, it won't, it doesn't activate straight away, so just be aware of that. The other thing that's a bit annoying about it is all the climates in the screen, and if you've got the Apple CarPlay on, for instance, and you want to adjust your climate, when you go back to press the climate, it brings this screen up and takes off your Apple CarPlay, so you've got to then go back to it, if that makes sense. So that's a bit annoying. It'd be nice maybe just to have a temperature adjustment somewhere here, you know, or a permanent, you know, if it was in the screen, something permanent down there that you could just, you know, up and down the climate with, rather than having to go into all the time, but it doesn't do that. So there we go. So look, it's not the best screen in the world. It's not the easiest to navigate. It's not the worst. It's relatively slick. It moves relatively fast. But yeah, there's a bit too much reliance on it in some respects. And I say that annoying thing about the climate menu. So, you want to turn the fan speed down, you've got to go into it and turn the fan speed down, you see. Wouldn't it be nice if there's just a little scroll wheel or something for the fan you could just do that with? There we go. Right, so that's that. All your vehicles. Oh, what did I do there? Hang on. See what I mean? You've got to go in. Where was the bit I wanted to show you? Can't find it now. General settings. Oh, no, vehicle settings. There we go. Here we go. So this is the other bit that slightly annoys me. So obviously, as cars get more sophisticated, see, look, got to press that twice. See, 3 times I've had to press that before it registers me pressing it. Things like driving assistance settings, lane keep assist, to turn it off, you've got to go in here. There's too many steps. There's just too many steps to get to something that I just want to turn off, because it has to come on by default. That's the law now. So things like lane keep assist, speed limit warning, that type of thing, you've got to, there's just too many. And and if you forget to do it before you set off, where is the speed limit warning? See, that's right down at the bottom there. You've got to scroll down. So there's just too many steps to get to it. And it's not, because it's not the easiest screen to use, it can be a bit of a faff when you're driving. So you've got to remember to switch them all off before you set it off. And they default back on all the time. So that's my bugbear with that. I'm not going to go on about it because it's not the only car that does that, in fairness to it. But because the screen isn't the most responsive, it can be a bit annoying. The design of the dashboard, as I say, is quite minimal. And what you get is what looks like a sort of, and it is, in fairness, there is a soft touch material up at the top with a stitch runs through it. And then you get this, which I quite like, this copper finish. I'd rather it was this than that silly piano black, that black plastic veneer that everyone else goes for. So that is quite different and quite nice. It's textured, and there's a little bit of kind of faux carbon fibre. Well, I don't know if it is, but graphite sort of trim there, which is quite nice. So it's pleasant enough to look at. My only downside is the steering wheel, which feels big. It feels really big. It's still look at the old Ssangyong logo in it, which, Anyway, buttons on the wheel are okay. They're physical as well, so if you're adjusting volume, track search or whatever, or the mode for your cruise control, it's over on this side here, and then over on this side here you've got other cruise control buttons and your configuration for your dials here. Column stocks are nice behind. They have got quite a nice chunky feel to them. They don't feel cheap at all. They've got a nice kind of rigid, sort of like solid feel to them. So I do quite like the column stocks. Down in the door panel, you'd expect 4 window controls, your mirror controls, lock and unlock as well. So all that's where you expect to find it. You see what I mean? There's no other buttons here. That's it. So it's all controlled through the screen. Storage is excellent. Okay, so you've got a wireless charging pad, which you slide your mobile down in there, and then you've got this big cubby in the centre, which is relatively big. Enough for a couple of Mars bars in there. You get 2 bottle holders as standard, there, and then you get a little tray in front of that. It's enough just for a wallet or some coins or whatever. And there's a little tray in front of the dashboard there. I can get my Sonny sitting on that. And then underneath this floating console, there's a tray, and I can get my iPad mini in it there as well. So there's quite a decent amount of storage, and again, big door bins, not lined, so things will rattle around in them, and they do feel a little bit cheap, the plastic on the side of them, but they're deep enough, and they'll take another water bottle as well, so that's okay. Glove box, yeah, it's got one of those, and it will take gloves. Excellent. Right, no sunroof. I'm a bit surprised at that, but I suppose it's the shape of the roof, but it'd be nice to have maybe a panoramic sunroof. That would have been quite nice to have. The seats, they're electrically adjustable and heated, and they're heated in the rear. I forgot to mention that, they're heated in the back as well. Again, depending on model. I think the K30 didn't get the heated rear seats, and you get a heated steering wheel. But the seats are okay. I found them a bit firm in this car. They weren't really that bad in the electric one that I had, but they seem a bit firmer in this. Maybe it's a bit of a newer car. I don't know. They're okay. You know, they're comfortable enough. I did quite a long drive in the electric one. I had it over the weekend at the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and I had it up and down to Chichester from my house in Surrey quite a bit. And they're comfortable enough to do that sort of driving, so they're okay. They do support you in the right places. The people do better seats, but they are all right. You're not going to find too much of a problem with them. The gear shift is here on it's one of those toggle switches. But one thing I did find out earlier, which was slightly embarrassing actually, as I was driving down a lane and a car was coming towards me, I had to reverse. When I stopped and I pushed it forward out to drive, and I pushed it and held it thinking I'd gone into reverse. I put my foot in the accelerator and it just revved. You have to, it's 2 stages. So from drive, it's neutral, let go, reverse. It's probably a safety thing, but just be aware of that. And then there's an electronic park brake and a P button for park, obviously. So yeah, what can I say other than that? It's all right. It's a nice design. It's functional enough. There's everything you expect. I mean, it's quite well equipped, as I say. Even the K30 is well equipped. The K40 gets these. They call it premium leather, and the K30 gets synthetic leather, but that feels quite synthetic to me. But you know, I mean, again, it's quite nice. I mean, it would wipe clean certainly. And I quite like, as I say, this copper material. It's just a bit different, and everything does. So it doesn't feel like a cheap interior in that sense. That's what I'm trying to say, rather inelegantly. And I quite like the design of it, but it is let down a little bit by that. As I say, it's okay, but it's not ideal. You know, and again, just kind of lower down, like the door bins just feel a bit plasticky and stuff. But on the whole, it's like the back. It's very spacious. You've got enough room for, you know, you've got enough seat travel. You know, if you're a taller driver than me, there's enough seat travel in it. You know, then you're not going to disturb the people in the back. There's a good amount of storage space in the car. It's comfortable enough. Yeah, it's a good solid effort, and it's way better than you would maybe have traditionally thought from a car manufacturer such as Ssangyong. Of course, it's not Ssangyong, it's KGM, but you know what I mean. It's a better quality material, but it's a long way from something like, say, a Skoda Kodiaq or a Volkswagen Tiguan, but it's not bad. Right, time to talk about engines again. 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder. That's your lot. If you're not going for the electric Torres, the EVX, then this is your only other engine choice that you have, which is a bit of a surprise. I'm surprised that they're not doing, you know, like a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or even a turbo diesel, which would be quite welcome, I would think. Anyway, that's it. That's what you've got. It's a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, 163 PS. Not exactly, you know, a road rocket, but you know, that's what it has. 260 Newton meters of torque. So that's it. Now that delivers the drive to the front wheels through a 6-speed ASIN automatic gearbox. There is going to be an all-wheel drive version that's coming out later in 2024, but it'll be the same as this, same internal, the same mechanicals as this car, and there's no manual option on the car either. Now, fuel economy wise, if you're looking at the official figures, then you're looking at a combined MPG of just over 33 miles to the gallon, which I think is quite disappointing. And also another reason why I think there possibly should have been the option of certainly, if not a plug-in hybrid, certainly of some kind of mild hybrid, or even, as I say, a turbo diesel engine. But anyway, you don't have it, so if you don't want this engine, then it's an electric one you've got to have. Oh, and if you need to tow with it, whether you're a caravanist or you tow a trailer or a horse box or whatever, then it will tow a brake trailer of up to 1,500 kilos. So there you go. Right, out on the open road. Now, as I say, I've driven the electric version, it's the EVX, and performance-wise, that does okay. I mean, it's a heavier car, but it's a bit more powerful, and that does 0 to 60 in just under 9 seconds. I think it's about 8.5, 8.6 seconds. This takes a bit longer, another 2 seconds. So it's 163 PS that's in this car, so 0 to 60 in 10.5 seconds. Yeah, and it does feel it. And to be honest with you, it's not a car that enjoys being hurried. Now, the gearbox, it's a 6-speed ASIN automatic gearbox. That's the only option you can have in the car, is this 6-speed auto box. And I have to say, it's just a bit slow and a little bit, yeah, just see, look, they're pulling out of roundabout, it wasn't quite sure what it wanted to do there. It wasn't quite ready. It felt like it needed to react a bit faster than that. You know, and as I say, if you're pulling out of a junction or around, come on, there we go. Do you see what I mean? That's it, just starting to get up to speed now. It's that few seconds delay that can make the difference between sort of like a bum clenching movement and one that's been fine. So that's my first thing about it. The engine's not particularly smooth. It's not a particularly nice engine to sort of like rev out, and the gearbox just can't really decide where it wants to be at that point. You can shift yourself. So, you know, you've got a manual override on the box with a paddle shifter system on the steering wheel. So left to come down, right to go up. But even then, come on. No, it doesn't want to change up and set its gear for me. There we are. Right, all right. So yeah, so that's what you've got in terms of its ability and of its performance. The other issue that I've got with it as well is the ride quality. It's not firm. It's not soft. It's just jiggly. It just tends to, you know, every little bit of surface imperfection it finds, it transmits too much of it through into the cabin. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about, you know, just making you aware there's a bump there. Lots of cars do that. It's how they deal with the bump that's the trick. You know, whether the dampers have got a nice kind of, sort of like rebound on them, or, you know, the secondary ride, whether or not there's an absorption where it keeps it away from you as a driver or a passenger, but letting you know that it's there. This doesn't do that. It really does transfer it up into you. You do feel all about. I'm just going to turn left here at this roundabout, and it's a particularly pockmarked bit of road where it starts off. So I always find this road quite a good test of a car's ride quality. So here we go. Loads of potholes here. Where are they? Here they are. Let's find them. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You can feel them. So you see what I mean? Once it's on a smooth piece of tarmac and you're not trying to wring every last sort of like rev out of it, it's actually all right. And on a motorway, the biggest noise that you get from it's usually wind noise and tyre noise. Now they've got big chunky door mirrors, in fairness, so you know, you can expect a bit of wind noise. I don't mind that so much. And on the 20-inch wheels, it's got big old tyres on them, so again, you can imagine there's going to be a little bit of road roar from it. So that's the two biggest culprits. You could alleviate, they could get rid of some of that road noise with a bit more sound deadening underneath the car, you know, in the cabin, I would think. But the door mirror stuff, well, you know, they're big mirrors. What can you expect in that way? I think I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of safety kit on the car. But as I say, if you want to turn it off, you've got to go into that screen. So lane keep assist, forward collision warning, speed limit warning. On the K40, you get rear cross traffic alert. So it's quite, you know, sort of like safety orientated. There's a host of safety systems that are on the car that you're probably going to expect at this level, and it's not short of giving them to you. So you do have them all, but as I say, if you want to turn them off, which I personally prefer to do, you've got to delve into that screen. The steering is the other issue here. It's quite vague, you know. I mean, you're turning the wheel and you're not quite sure if the wheels are they are responding, but not quite at the same time as the steering wheel is turning. So it's not a car, as I say, that encourages you to be, you know, sort of like enthusiastic with it, shall we suggest. But then it's a big family car. You know, maybe that's not your bag, but, you know, it's just that there are others in the class that do it. You know, there's Skoda Kodiaq that I drove the other week. You know, again, it's not a car you're going to be searching out, you know, twisty, turny mountain passes in. But, you know, if you're in the car on your own and you like something a bit more enthusiastic, that car responds quite well. This doesn't. I think a lot of it's to do with the size of this wheel. It's got a really big wheel. I'm not sure whether it's me or whether car steering wheels just seem to be getting a bit bigger again. They do seem to be going that way, you know, as the actual diameter of them. It seems huge. Anyway, there we go. So, jittery ride, vague steering, unresponsive gearbox or slow responding gearbox. It's not adding up to be a brilliant drive. It's all right, and as I say, you know, I don't want to appear like I'm being really hard on it, but I also have to be fair. You know, if you were spending this level of money on a car, I can't sit here and say, yeah, it's all right, you're going to enjoy it, it's okay, it does the trick. Others do it better. And there's a bit of body roll as well, because obviously it is a big old car, you know, so you do go into a bend, you know, and you lean on it, there is a fair bit of body lean on the car. See, look there, there's some cat's eyes just coming. If you're wandering that white line, you really feel them. They're really coming through on the right side. I feel like I need to be positive for a second, so I will be. Good driving position. So although it is a medium-sized sort of crossover, if you're buying this style of car because you like that, sorry, I'm just going through this width restriction. If you're buying this style of car, this crossover SUV style, because you like to sit quite high up and you like a good view of everything, then you're going to find it here. There's a really good driving position. You sit way up in the car. You can really see the extremities of it. Our family car is a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it's one car that really reminds me of that. You know, you sit quite tall in it. You can really see the square edges of the bonnet, you know, looking behind you, looking down the flanks of the car in the mirror. You can see everything. There's no real blind spot in it, so that's good. And as I say, even with the seat in its lowest position, which I'm in at the moment, I still feel like I'm sitting up. I've got this really tall driving position where it's nice and easy to see. So if you were using the car round about town, for instance, you know, you're going into sort of a car park, or, you know, manoeuvring round you know, a multi-storey or whatever, you certainly get good visibility out of it, and because of the chunky styling you can see all the corners and the edges of it, so that's good, that's excellent. And the controls fall easily to hand, the ones that are on physical switches, so the column stocks, the window switches, they're at a nice height. You know, the gear shift, as I say, I'd prefer it if it just did it in the one movement, but you know, it is there if you do need to manoeuvre it. It's just your arms resting in the side here, and it is just at your fingertips. So there is a lot to like about, you know, in terms of the driving position and where you are. The last thing to discuss really then is the brakes, which are all right. They're not spongy. There's a relatively good feel through the pedal on them. The only thing I will say, a bit like the other response in the car, there's nothing behind me. If I just, let me go onto this straight piece of road here and just hank on the anchors. Yeah, you got to give them a fair old push before you get any feel through the pedal, before it actually, you know, it feels like there's something gripping there. So, on the face of it, it is a car that seems to sort of like draw you in with, I think, good styling, good practicality. Okay, not 7 seats, but that doesn't matter. Not everyone in the class does offer that, but good practicality, loads of boot space. Could do with some tyre lashings down. The interior's okay, but I think it's let down by the driving experience. I have to say, the EVX, the electric one, is a much nicer car to drive. I'm really not sold on this car, especially when you can get a Skoda Kodiaq for a similar money. Yeah. Right. How much is it, Brian? Well, it's £35,080 for the K30, which is the lead-in model. Although at the moment there's a bit of a deal on, there's a bit of money off that. But I'm filming this in August, September 2024. So if you're watching it later on, don't take that as read, that's around. If you want to jump up to the K40, which will get you the 20-inch alloy wheels, the inbuilt TomTom navigation, some more of the ADAS system, so things like rear cross traffic alert, a better blind spot monitoring, parking camera, that type of thing, and the premium leather seats, then you've got to add on £3,000, so £38,080 for the K40 model. If you want the all-wheel drive that's coming out, you can only have that at the moment in the K40, so that's going to be a fiver under 40 grand, so 39,995 for the all-wheel drive K40. So it is a bit cheaper than the EVX, the electric version of the Torres. So if you do go for the 1.5 litre petrol engine, you are making a bit of a saving over the electric one. In terms of warranty package, it's a 5-year warranty or 100,000 miles, whichever you do sooner, which is better than some of the European manufacturers give you. Not as good as some of the Far Eastern manufacturers, such as Kia, obviously with a 7-year warranty. Toyota, where you can take it up to about 10 years, but still 5 years isn't bad. especially in this class of car, against some of those European manufacturers. Right, let's have a little think about what else you could buy then. Because as I say, this class of car is now, I think, the de facto family car of choice. If you think back to when I was a bit younger, you know, family cars were those medium-sized saloon cars, you know, Cortinas, then obviously Sierra, Cavalier, Montego, those style of cars. Whereas now it's the medium-sized crossover / SUV that's the family car of choice. And of course, there's plenty to choose from. And most of them from those recognisable brand names like I've just mentioned. So Ford with the Kuga, Vauxhall, the new Grandland, that's going to have 7 seats as well, the option of 7 seats too, as is the Peugeot 5008. So cars like that are going to be on your radar. The Skoda Kodiaq we tested a few weeks back, brilliant family car. That's in this market space, albeit at lower down, you know, in its price range point, but it's still a rival for this car, and which obviously means things like the new Volkswagen Tiguan are as well. There's other cars to think about as well from the sort of like the Far East manufacturers, which are really playing into the strengths now and becoming really competitive, if not class leading in some respects. Hyundai Santa Fe, a car I've driven just recently, Kia Sorento, a car that's going to be on the channel very soon. That's just a big update. They're 7-seat capability as well. So they're cars to think about. And there's also some newer names, or say newer names, but cars maybe that are one that's certainly coming back with an old name, MG with the HS. That's just had a big refresh, and that's a hybrid, and that's the other thing that I think this is lacking in. And if we're talking about hybrids, then there's another new name to consider, which is BYD with the new Seal U. Japan has obviously offered a lot in this class as well up until now. The Toyota RAV4, the brilliant Honda CR-V, the Nissan X-Trail, again 7-seat capability. So my point is, there's a lot out there if this is the market space you're looking for, and dare I suggest that come along with more recognisable brand names that you've been used to. So, is the KGM Torres another name to add to your list for consideration if you're looking for a new family car that happens to be a medium-sized crossover / SUV? Well, I think it's a good looking car to my eyes. I think in a chunky old school off-roader style of way. I like the way the car looks, and it's amazingly practical. Unless you really need 7 seats, I can't see a scenario where most families are going to find this on the small side. It's pretty much practicality on 4 wheels, and it's very well equipped to standard as well, that has to be said. However, the flip side to all that is it's not that great to drive in some respects. I don't think the engine's its best advocate. It's mated to a gearbox that I find quite slow and dim-witted. The ride's a bit jittery and the steering's quite vague, in fairness. Now, you can alleviate some of that if you were to plump for, say, the electric version, the EVX, Torres EVX, but that's thousands of pounds more, and that's the problem that they have with the Torres. There's no other choice. There's no mild hybrid, there's no plug-in hybrid, there's no diesel option, something that a lot of the competition still offer, you know, to alleviate some of the problems that the car comes with. So whilst it's a reasonably good car and it's nice to see the brand offer an addition into the class, it remains a little bit of a left field choice in my book, because as far as I'm concerned, there are much better cars in this class from more recognisable brand names for similar money. Thank you for watching yet another new car review on House of Cars. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, please. It's still quite a new channel and I am looking to grow it, so I really would appreciate it if you're not a subscriber becoming one. I'd really appreciate that. And once you've done that, press the bell button down below, because that's the way you get notified when my next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you've watched this video and you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have, could you give it a wee thumbs up, please? And of course, don't forget, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you have one? Am I talking out my backside? Why did you buy it? Or did you look at it and decide on something else? What made you not go for the KGM? Are you an old Ssangyong user? Does this not interest you? Or are you interested in the electric one? And if you are, you need to go on to Auto EV, because that's where my review of that car is. And I think the electric one's better than this one. There we go. I'm on social media in terms of Instagram, so at House of Cars 1973. So if you want to give me a follow there, that's where you'll find me there. And remember, whether or not it is a big car or a small car, whether or not it's an old car or it's a new car, whether it's a fast car or whether it's a slow car, you're going to find them all here in House of Cars. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.